Welcome to the College Football Show. I'm your boy, George Wrighster, former NFL player, college football analyst for CW. And today we have a jam-packed show. Oregon Ducks head coach Dan Lanning will be joining us in just a few. We are going to switch things up this week a little bit. I am going to give you the game previews this week, release my top 25. Yeah, and then the Dan Lanning thing again. So you guys make sure that you like, subscribe, get notifications, and tell a friend about the show. So we are now in week 6 in college football. And the contenders and the pretenders, they haven't quite weeded themselves out yet because there are still a lot of huge matchups, a lot of big games, and a lot to be decided on the field. Now, there are teams that we believe are good, right? Like teams that have the right pedigree, teams that have the right name, teams that have the right coaches, if you will. Some of these teams ain't gonna make the playoff because it is not for everybody, and neither should it be for everybody. And but this week though, we have some big matchups that are going to decide who's a contender and who's a pretender. Now, the first game that we are going to talk about, Miami at Florida State. Now, this is at Doak Campbell Stadium. It is 4:30 p.m. Pacific time, 7:30 Eastern time. Possible thunderstorms because right now the thunderstorms are supposed to come in on Sunday, but we know how Florida weather is. I know your boy used to live there, played with the Jags, and yeah, coach versus coach. We got Mario Cristobal versus Mr. Mike Norvell. And Cristobal came into this season 1-6 versus ranked teams at Miami. Now, beating Notre Dame, that does not mean that Cristobal is in the clear. But the Canes, they should have confidence about, dominating a lesser team after the way that they did USF and the way that they did Florida in the trenches. Now, Mario Cristobal is a guy that wants to be physical as hell all game. And that in and of itself means that he is going to try to physically dominate the opposing team. And remember, Mario Cristobal also wants to be the guy that not just physically dominates the other team, but he wants to impose his will and make sure that everybody knows who the dominant team in the state of Florida is. Now, when we look at the line on this game, because these things matter to a lot of people. The line on this game, Miami is only favored by 4.5 points, despite what we saw from Florida State last week when they lost to Virginia. And part of that is because Mario Cristobal has a combined 1-2 record against Florida State as a head coach and a record of now as a player, but that's a whole different thing. Is 3-1 as a player versus them. And if you think about it, Cristobal sort of owes Florida State for getting him the Miami job. If you really think about that, because Willie Taggart got the head coaching job at Oregon. Mario Cristobal came with him. Taggart leaves and goes to Florida State. Does not do a great job. And then he gets fired. And then Mario Cristobal is doing good at Oregon. And then Miami's coach gets fired. Now, Mario Cristobal gets to go to Miami. See, 6 degrees of separation. But let's look at Mike Norvell, Florida State's head coach, because he publicly disagreed with his quarterback that the Virginia loss was about the guys feeling themselves after an undefeated start. So Norvell said the loss was about not being experienced in playing from behind and recovering from early mistakes. Now, this is one thing that causes a problem with teams. Head coach and the quarterback, they got to be on the same page. The messaging has to be the same, which highly concerns me about this game. Because whatever the actual facts are, they've created a situation where Florida State needs to beat Miami if they still intend to contend for an ACC title. Because everybody was real excited about that Alabama game. But what I said about this Florida State team proved true last week. They are a good football team. They are a much improved football team from last season. However, there is a significant difference in being able to win a game, right? There's a big difference in being able to win a game and being able to play at the highest level that is needed on a week in and week out basis. Let's look at quarterback versus quarterback. We got Thomas Castellanos over there at Florida State because he has been getting some passes batted down because he's a short king. And some of that has led to turnovers as well. But that's really only the criticism that you can have of his play so far this season because his yards per attempt are up almost 25% from last year. And he has career highs in pretty much every passing stat, like yards per game and completion percentage. And he's also running more than he did last year at Boston College. And that makes the Florida State offense a lot more dangerous. Because Castellanos, his biggest weapon is 6'6" wide receiver Deuce Robinson. And this kid transferred over from USC and because he wanted to play at his dad's alma mater in Tallahassee. And now he's averaging over 20 yards per grab on the year. And he has been a dominating factor despite that drop or not drop, depending on how you feel about it, at the end of the Virginia game. Now, Miami's quarterback, Carson Beck. He also has 3 interceptions on the year, but he is having a career year in terms of completion percentage because he trusts the receivers that he has with him at Miami. Because Georgia last year, I think they either were number 1 or number 2 in drops on the year. And it makes a big difference when the quarterback can chunk up a ball to CJ Daniels like he did in that Notre Dame game, and he make a one-handed around the back loop-de-loop catch. But the scary thing about Miami this year is that they honestly don't need Beck to be Cam Ward from last year in terms of being able to win. Because against Florida in the first half, he was 8 for 17 for 98 yards. But the question is, can Beck carry this team if necessary? I believe so for a couple of games, but you only need that for a couple of times a season out of your quarterback anyway to be a superhero. But like he can carry him. But Florida State, think about this last week. They picked off Virginia's quarterback Chandler Morris 3 times, and that led to 14 of their 35 points in regulation. So why put the ball at risk when you can run teams over? Now, I do believe that Carson Beck is better than Chandler Morris, but still. And that brings me to comparing the Miami offense versus the Florida State defense. Now, Miami is being extremely methodical when they have the capability to be explosive. You got Malachi Toney, C.J. Daniels, Keelan Marion. They're only averaging 11 yards per catch on 51 receptions. Now, the Hurricanes, they only have 240-plus yard pass plays on the season so far. Now, before the season, my recommendation to Miami was, listen, get behind Mark Fletcher Jr., and let him run the rock on the way to a potential Heisman Trophy bid. Now, assuming that Miami continues on their current pace and makes the ACC championship, Fletcher is then on pace for 1,300 yards, 16 touchdowns, and 6 yards a carry. Now, those aren't Heisman numbers, but they are ACC Player of the Year kind of numbers. Now, on the offensive side for Florida State versus Miami's defense, Florida State is on offense. They are hard to pin down because there's organized chaos of Thomas Castellanos, who hadn't thrown more than 14 passes in a game through 3 games. And then he had to be put in a position to have to throw to bring Florida State back in the game against Virginia on the road. And if you only watch that final drive of the game in regulation, you might actually think that Castellanos is the best quarterback on earth because he's running about as often as he's completing passes so far. And Florida State, they need Squirrel White to step up along with Deuce Robinson. Just saying. Now, on the defensive side, I don't believe that Miami has anybody that can shut down Deuce Robinson one-on-one because very few teams actually have an answer for a guy that looks like, Jason Taylor at wide receiver. Now, you don't even have to cover him perfectly to dissuade Thomas Castellanos from looking his way, but he's going to force the ball to him. But now the man that is on people's Heisman list that must be talked about for Miami is Reuben Bain Jr. And then you got Akeem Mesidor as well. Because those dudes are absolute problems. Impossible to block. And this is the reason why Miami is having so much success on defense this year. All right. Now, let's look at the X factors of this game. Because you got Carson Beck, he's the X factor for Miami because he isn't a statue, but he operates from the pocket almost exclusively. And after watching Chandler Morris make Florida State pay with 3 touchdowns on the ground, you actually have to wonder if Beck has it in him to pick up a few yards to keep the chains moving. Because back in 2023 at Georgia, he scrambled, but he never really wasn't with the game on the line outside of the one contest with Georgia Tech. Now, does Beck have it in him to dive through the pylon to make a play if necessary? But for Florida State, they only have 2 players with double-digit solo tackles, and they are both DBs. You got East Texas A&M and Kent State back-to-back weeks. Now, that I promise you didn't get this defense ready for conference play. But Memphis transfer Elijah Herring, he did step up to make a few plays against Virginia. And the Seminoles are going to need him and the safeties, Ashton Barker and Earl Little, to put their bodies on the line in this one to keep Mark Fletcher from getting past the second level and running over this defense. But my pick in this game is going to be, and this is hard because this is a 4.5 point spread. I have Miami as one of the top 4 teams in the country. I think that this is going to be a lot in Doak Campbell, and I am going to pick Florida State to lose this football game. I am going to pick Miami to keep rolling, and then people are going to have questions about Mike Norvell after this game. But as the clips would say, so be it, so be it. Now let's look at this Vandy versus Alabama game. Alabama's favored by 10.5 points going into Bryant-Denny Stadium, and this is a 12:30 kick Pacific, 3:30 Eastern time on ABC. Now, coach versus coach. We got Kalen DeBoer in this game going against Clark Lee over there at Vanderbilt. Now, the question is, did Kalen DeBoer get his groove back versus Georgia, or does Alabama just own Georgia? Honestly, both actually could be true. But before we get into what DeBoer is doing right, we have to use the weekly disclaimer that this is a must-win for Alabama, because every week is a must-win for Alabama. And DeBoer is not going to be off the fan base hot seat because he ain't actually on the real hot seat because they ain't finna fire him unless, he loses 6 games this season. Now, he's not going to be off the hot seat until you get multiple SEC championships, trips to the playoffs, and everything else. But the thing is, let's assume that he was coaching somewhere else and where the standard is not perfection. Do you see what he's doing with these quarterbacks? It's literally the same thing he's always done, but it never gets less impressive. Ty Simpson has looked like a neurosurgeon out there, and all 3 of their former talented passers are a combined 15 touchdowns and 0 interceptions and 70% completions. That is what Ty Simpson is doing. And this is why you hired Kalen DeBoer for quarterback play and game planning. Now, on the other side, you got Clark Lee, because his staff are everything that is good and is fun about college football. Because he is a Vanderbilt fullback that grinded his way up to becoming Notre Dame's DC before taking the Vandy job and then filling his staff with some of the easiest guys to root for. You got Jerry Kill, who, if it wasn't for health issues, might be an SEC head coach. And he's impacted everywhere he's been in a positive way. You got Tim Beck calling the offense, who spent 30 years winning at Pittsburgh State. And then you got Steve Gregory calling the defense, and then you got a white undrafted free agent defensive back out of Syracuse that played 85 games in the NFL. There's no wonder why Diego Pavia is tearing it up there, because he's surrounded by an entire staff of Diego Pavias. They understand him and they get it. They get it and they believe, because if you ask them Vanderbilt players, man for man, oh, what do you think about playing Alabama? They'd be like, we don't give a damn about playing Alabama. We don't give a damn. They aren't scared. They beat them last year, and now they are so determined because they foolishly believe Diego Pavia when he told them, I came back to win a national championship. Now, it's not foolish in terms of, is that going to happen? No. But Is it foolish that he's gotten them to believe that? No, because that's what great leaders do. And he's one of the best leaders. And I will say this, that Diego Pavia has that, like he's Tim Tebow. That's what he is. He's Tim Tebow without a Bible. That's what he is. He instills that sort of belief in everybody around. Is Diego Pavia the best passer? No. Was Tim Tebow? No. Are they excellent college quarterbacks? 100%. I mean, it is. I mean, at some point in time, if Diego Pavia wins this game and Vanderbilt wins this game, how can you not put him as a Heisman front runner? It'll be him and Dante Moore if he wins this game. And then a side of Fernando Mendoza, depending on what happens in the Oregon game against Dante Moore. So, dude, this is great. This is great theater. This is great action. I am excited about this game. I mean, now on the Alabama side, you got Grubb, who is their play caller, and he's gotten back to having the fun again because they threw a pass to Caden Proctor last week, their left tackle, and that was against Georgia. Because if it can be done, Alabama will do it. That makes their players happy. It's innovative. It's fun. That makes players be like, "Yo, our coach, he believes in us. He'll do all sorts of stuff." I'm just saying, it is fun and it is exciting to watch. And then you got Vanderbilt's defense because the strength of their team really is their ability to create down and distance disadvantages to get off the field on third down. Because they have only allowed 19 out of 55 third down conversions. That ranks 18th in the country. Well, and they also rank 18th in the country in tackles for loss with 31. Steve Gregory's defense also seems to adapt to as the game goes on, especially coming out of halftime, because those adjustments are going to matter. Now, my pick in this game, actually, I'll go with my X Factor first. For Alabama, I think it's Jeremy Bernard. Everybody knows who Ryan Williams is, and I don't think that that's going to be a thing. But for Vanderbilt, I think the X Factor is Diego Pavia and their defense being able to get off the field on third down. Alabama is favored by 10.5 points. I am going to take Alabama to win this game, but I am going to take the Commodores plus 10.5. This feels like a game that could, depending on the game script, it could go left. And if Kalen DeBoer loses to Vanderbilt at home, Lord help him. Lord help him in the state of Alabama, the city of Tuscaloosa. We do have Dan Lanning coming up in just a few minutes. But I did want to take a break from the games to give you guys my top 25 for this week, reveal my top 25 for this week. Now, I base my top 25 criteria on three things: quality wins, schedule played, and dominance. I don't project out to what you are going to be. There's no projection about, your roster. There's no quote unquote benefit of the doubt. We don't do that on this poll. It only matters what you have put on the wood. That's it. That is all you get. So, my 21 through 25. Missouri at 21, Illinois at 22, Utah 23, BYU at 24, Washington at 25. I love the way Washington looked on some level versus Ohio State. They didn't get run out of the building. They played tough. They played physical. They just got leaned on. They got leaned on a lot, and they eventually cracked by a more talented team. But I love what Jed Fish is doing. They're building. They are going to be a tough out as the season continues to go on with their quarterback, DeMond Williams. Let's look at BYU. They're continuing to grow. Utah recovered from that Texas Tech loss. Now, they still do have some things that they got to shore up in that passing game with Dampier, but is what it is. Loved Illinois' rebound from the Indiana loss. to beat USC, who was in the top 25 last week. And then we got Missouri at number 21, who we're going to have to start talking about Missouri probably pretty damn soon, because this is a team. They do have coming up, they got a nice little slate coming up. And this and that slate is where we are going to find out who they really are. Because coming up, they have, Missouri coming up. They are coming up on, honestly, the toughest part of their schedule. And it's going to be a part where they can't be denied if they are able to navigate the next few weeks. I'm just saying. All right. We also, oh, now let's get to the next ones. We have 16 through 20. We have Notre Dame at 16, Tennessee at 17, LSU 18, Michigan 19, Florida State 20. And I know that people are going to harp and they're going to be focused on this Notre Dame situation. Notre Dame, yes, they do have 2 losses right now. And people have been asking, George, how can you have them ranked? How can anybody have them ranked? Well, it's pretty easy. If you watch those games that they lost, when they lost to Texas A&M 41-40, there was clearly a play at the end of the game, that last play where the touchdown was thrown. Should have been a holding penalty. It was clear as day to everybody else involved. And then you have that Miami game. That was a very close game. They lost that game by 3 points. Then they came out and scorched Purdue, and they did bad things to Arkansas as well, putting up 50 points a game. They are scoring points. They've scored 24 against Miami, 40 versus Texas A&M, 56 versus Purdue, and Arkansas 56. So it's funny because people keep talking about their schedule, Notre Dame schedule, Notre Dame schedule. What is the issue with their schedule? They are the only team in America that, from my recollection, that they have not played an FCS or a Group of 5 opponent yet. What else do you want from them? Just the reality. LSU, their offense is we know. We do not believe. And Michigan, they got to get some more passing yards and stuff out of Bryce Underwood. And Florida State, they got a huge test with Miami coming up this week, so they can vault back up the rankings. But that Virginia loss just shows that, they're not of the highest ilk right now. Then we got to talk about the next group of teams. We got number 11 Texas A&M, number 12 Georgia Tech, number 13 Alabama, number 14 Georgia, and number 15 Texas. Now, I'll get called an SEC hater at this point in time, but let's be real about this. Texas A&M, way too many penalties. I understand they're sitting undefeated right now. People have them ranked the highest 4, in some places 5. But too many penalties, and Marcel Reese, he needs to level up as a passer a little bit. But he is a playmaker. And his defense is much improved despite the Notre Dame game. And, there's a quality football team, but they got to go win some more games. It's just the truth. All right. Georgia Tech. I'm going to tell you, this feels like fool's gold, but this is what they have earned. This feels like fool's gold because this team has not, they had some bumps against Temple. They should have lost the Wake Forest game last week, but they continue to win games. Their head coach doing a great job, Brent Key, but like I said, they have been running their quarterback Haynes King way too much, and they are going to have one of them Florida State Virginia games, maybe 2 of them. You can book it, but it's coming. Alabama and Georgia. People reacted to the Georgia win, overreacted to the Georgia win. Is Georgia a good football team? Yes. Is Georgia right now a team that we saw in Kirby Smart put out on the field for the last few years? No. No, they're not. They're not even as good as the team that won the SEC last year. They're not. So the Alabama win, they get credit for. So why is Florida State ranked behind? Florida State lost to Virginia. Like, come on. Florida State was behind them last week. Well, was in front of Alabama last week, but they got a good win. And Texas, I have no idea how people still have Texas ranked inside of their top 10. I don't, because Texas has not done anything this season, to lead you to believe so far, because Arch Manning has not played great so far, that this is a top team, and they're ranked number 9. They lost to Ohio State. Then they beat San Jose State, UTEP, and Sam Houston. And now I'm supposed to believe all over again? No, sir. No, sir. Next up, we have the top 6. Ole Miss at 6, Indiana 7, Texas Tech 8, Iowa State 9, and Vanderbilt 10. And you're like, George, do you really think that Vanderbilt is better than Texas A&M, Alabama, Georgia, and Texas? We'll see. We'll see. I'm not thinking. I'm not thinking. I'm going off of what has been put on the paper, what has been put on the film. They've beaten Virginia Tech, South Carolina, Utah State, Georgia State, and Charleston Southern. If Alabama had the same resume with the amount that they won by in these games, they'd probably be number 1 in the nation. So I am not going to disrespect Virginia in that way. One thing I find interesting is that number 9, Iowa State, they are underdogs this week at Cincinnati, which is a little bit weird, but we will get some answers there. Texas Tech at 8, feel good about them. Indiana versus Oregon in 2 weeks, going to let everybody know what is going on. And the Big Ten looks really good right now. And Ole Miss, a team that I did not believe in. I can't say anything about them right now. They are off this week, so they're going to have the luxury of not losing. But there comes a point where I'm going to have to start believing in Ole Miss if they keep winning football games. And now the completion of the list. Oregon at 1, Miami 2, Ohio State 3, Oklahoma 4, Penn State 5. Penn State still looked very good on defense when I went back and watched the all-22 of the Oregon game. They did not let Oregon run away from them, even though they got dominated physically in the game. But it was still, like, they still made plays on defense, and they are going to be a tough out if they can figure out a little bit of offense. Like, they're going to be a tough out regardless. This is a good football team. Oklahoma. They beat Michigan already. They have done some nice things. They get a layup with Kent State this week. They've beaten Auburn already. So, yes, they look good. And, they get some time without their quarterback. But if they can just get by those games, you know that this is a good football team. Now, where the controversy starts for people is at the Ohio State pick. I understand. Ohio State is the reigning national champions, but that was last year. They got a whole new quarterback, whole new coordinator on the offense, whole new coordinator on defense. So forgive me if I'm not giving them all the benefits of the doubt, because we don't give benefits of the doubt. Ohio State's offense looks nerfed right now. And if you don't know what nerfing is, it's a video game term about when, like if you have a real gun, what happens? It shoots and it breaks things up. If it's a nerf, if it's a nerf weapon, what happens? It hits things and it doesn't break it. So that's what nerfing is. And between Julian saying, or whether it is, and them not trying to put too much on his plate, or whether it is Brian Hartline still trying to figure out the offensive coordinator stuff, that's why. But this defense, fantastic. Might be the best defense in the country if we really keeping it real. Miami at number 2. We've talked about them extensively. They look really good. They get a lot of credit for what they've done. And then you got number 1, Oregon. I felt like that they have been dominant all year. They just look really good. And they've shown that this show travels. It will go on the road and travel. And now they look like the best team in the country. All right. Now I want to get to what you all have been waiting for. Before we get to the rest of the picks, we are going to get to Mr. Dan Lanning, where we get a chance to talk to the head coach of the Ducks. Let's get to it. We are now on with the head coach of the Oregon Ducks, Mr. Dan Lanning. And they just went out to Happy Valley, got a huge win against Penn State. Coach, welcome to the show.
Appreciate you having me.
All right, so you just have a huge win. You're emotional after the game. Why were you so emotional after the game?
Yeah, those are the games that just drain you, man. And you see how hard your guys work. You're really proud of the effort they put in, and you knew in that moment it could have gone either way. So for it to tip your way, it's an emotional moment. It's a big one. It's exciting, and yeah, you celebrate it a little bit.
Yeah, and you have kids that are, middle school, almost high school age. So I would imagine that you've seen the memes, right? Or you've heard about the memes.
Oh yeah, oh yeah.
what was what did your wife and your kids say when you got home?
They know that I'm crazy. They know I'm crazy. You had a little sit down with them. You're like, hey, you see what? They're all laughing at it. They think it's hilarious. So it's fun because at home I'm dad, right? I'm not
Yep.
coach, so they can have fun making fun of me too whenever I get a little bit juiced.
What did you learn about this 2025-26 Ducks team in going to that environment and getting a win?
Well, just that they can handle the chaos, right? They can because it was chaos. It was a loud environment. It was an unbelievable environment. They can handle the pressure, right? The pressure got turned up. They leveled up, and overall, the guys played with unbelievable effort throughout the day. You continue to look through that film and you see guys that were playing with their hair on fire, which is awesome.
Yeah, what do you do to get your team prepared for that? Because there was so much noise, pomp and circumstance. Oh, it's the whiteout, this and that. But and I heard you say play the game, not the environment. So, but how do you actually like instill that into your team? Like, what things do you do?
Well, you can't create that chaos like in practice like you want for the game, but you try to make practice as hard as you possibly can. Whether it's the speakers being on top of our guys all the way throughout practice, whether it's the situations that you work, game on the line situations that you work in practice, where the coaches don't know what's coming, the players don't know what's coming, and you just kind of throw it on them in the middle of a practice. Those big moments, you try to create those on a regular basis and make it tough.
Yeah, and what did you learn about your quarterback in Dante Moore? Because obviously everybody knows he was physically talented, but it's different when you see it in practice and then when you see it in the game.
Yeah, I mean, just that he's that guy. He has unbelievable poise. He was at calm demeanor. Like he's a guy that can help me be calm in those moments, which is awesome to have somebody that like can chill you out a little bit too through the process. And he operated, but he operated knowing that he didn't need to do it himself. He had people around him that he could trust.
Yeah, that sounds like some Nick Sirianni, Jalen Hurts action going on, where a coach is at a 10 and Jalen's like, hey yo, we good, man. Is that kind of the relationship that you and Dante are building right now?
Yeah, we've got a great one, and I love him to death. I love him as a person more than I do as a quarterback. He's an unbelievable person. He works really hard, and when you know that your quarterback's prepared and he works like Dante works, it gives you a lot of confidence as a coach.
Yeah, on the Ducks versus them and the pregame things, there's a whole lot of stuff talked about leadership. You have the leadership retreats and all those sorts of things. How do you think that plays into how your team plays and really the development of the men and the character that allows you to go win games when you go into overtime?
Yeah, when you look at our team and you realize how many people were gone after last season, and we're going to have to establish some new leaders, establish some new standards. You tell the guys that, and you identify it right away, and you say, okay, but here's what we're going to do to attack it. A lot of people say it, like, what's the development look like? How are we going to transition that? And for us, we want to expose our guys to as many opportunities to create that as we can. And they did an unbelievable job of this offseason saying, okay, I'm tired of hearing coach say we need leadership, and it's there now. We have it.
Yeah, and you're getting a lot of production from true freshmen and redshirt freshmen. You got a redshirt freshman starting at corner, true freshmen starting, true freshmen at getting reps in the running back room. How is it the recruiting? Is it the development, identification? Like, how do you have so many impact young players playing on this team?
I think all that adds up. It's always tough for a young guy to be able to play if they're not prepared. Our coaches have done an unbelievable job preparing them, and those guys are doing an unbelievable job preparing. And then when you identify the right guys that you think can make an impact, we've always said it: if you're good enough, you're old enough, right? There is no age on performance, and
Oh,
these
that's
guys are performing at a young age.
yeah, I love that. And the team clearly understood the moment, but as a head coach in this playoff era, obviously you want to win your games to get to the playoff, but at the same time you want to be peaking when playoff time comes. And you had some experience last year. So what did you learn from last year that you're putting in application right now?
Well, I think it's every year is different. Every team's different. I think the big thing is us continuing to grow, try to find our awards before somebody else finds them. Recovery is huge for us this week. Our team's gone really hard for 5 weeks, putting ourselves in position where we can do a great job of recovering and still challenging ourselves in practice to be the best version of us and look for opportunities to grow up. But I think each year is a little bit different. You have to modify it based on what that team looks like.
Yeah, when you're looking at, I guess the bye week, right? Because coaches are notoriously the good ones seem like they focus on the things that didn't go right, even after an emotional win, so you don't have that letdown. So, what's the message for this week in the bye week before you have another top 10 matchup next week with Indiana?
Yeah, just tap in, right? Tap in on where you're at right now. Everybody has an improvement plan in our program, right? Every single position, every single person. So, what do we need to improve? What do we need to get better at? And be in the moment right now. It's about being right here on Tuesday, right? And not worrying about Wednesday, not worrying about Thursday, being in the moment right now to improve.
Can you talk about? I want to go back to that whiteout environment for a second, because there's been comparisons to Washington, to uh, Ohio State, and Autzen Stadium, and you said that that's one of the best environments that you've been in. What did you mean by that, and how would you compare it to some of the other places that you've been?
I think it starts right when you start to pull up and you see all the RVs, you see all the people tailgating. I mean, you're at first you're saying how do they get 100,000 or 110,000 people into State College, and then when you're driving up, you're like, oh, here they are, right? There's a bunch of them, and the operation throughout the game, the way they stay engaged, the fans, you don't see them sit down. They do a really good job. It's impressive to see, but it starts probably right when you're driving up and you recognize the tailgate.
Yeah, and the song Mo Bamba was a little bit of a discussion last week. Is that going in your playlist now?
Nah, I'm probably deleting that one.
Yeah, it was a really good experience. So, what do you need out of Ducks fans and the crowd in that they're going to get a week to recover, but what do they need to be looking forward to and expecting out of them in a week from now?
Our fans are the best. And, I think the thing that makes some environments different is they get hot for moments, right? They get hot for a third down. They get hot for a punt. They get hot for in the red area, right? Our fans, they're hot from start to finish all the way through the game. So that's what we need from them. We need that. We need that juice, that energy from them from beginning to end.
Yeah, and your defense, like the defense, stoned Penn State's running game for the majority of the game, and it's been different. And it looks like that there are some shades to some things that you guys played against last year. How important is it to that Ohio State game? It looks like you guys are using Thieneman a lot like they used Caleb Downs last year.
Yeah, you got to be able to adapt. You got to be able to adjust. I think that's an important trait, and that's for coaches. That's for players. I think our guys have done a really good job handling that. And ultimately, our goal is walking away after last season is how do we eliminate explosive plays, and that's been something that could help us.
Yeah, and you are clearly you're early in your head coaching journey, but it seems like you figured out a lot of things early. What I would say is the biggest thing that you learned from when you got the job to now you're sitting here having playoff experience and everything else?
I don't know if you can put your finger on one thing, but it's probably just that piece of what I said before about the ability to adapt and grow, and challenge your staff to do the same, not get comfortable. And looking at what's been successful, that's great, but it's more about looking about what can be a problem in the future and how do you attack that.
Yep. And well, we are excited to see what happens for the rest of this season. You guys, it is Dan Lanning, head coach of the Oregon Ducks. Any parting messages before we get out of here?
No, just appreciate our fans, man. Can't wait to see them fill out Autzen and create an unbelievable environment for us when we get with Indiana.
I appreciate it. Thanks for coming on.
You bet. Thanks, George.
Yep. Now let's get back to the games. We got Texas at Florida. Texas is a 6.5-point favorite in this game. The over-under in this game is 41.5. And if we look at this, right, the weather should be good in this game, but there is a chance of thunderstorms as well. So we will see. And if the weather gets muddy in this game, it could it could get interesting. Now, when we look at the coaches of this game, we got Billy Napier versus Steve Sarkisian. Steve Sarkisian has Texas humming again. And Billy Napier is fighting for momentum. He is fighting for stability. And the question is, can he save his job by beating Texas? Now, if the answer is yes, it shouldn't be done. Now, because a job should never come down to one result. It just shouldn't. And that goes to show that there's no long-term confidence or long-term vision for the future of this football team. Because if you are at a point where you're having this debate every time you lose, that means it is time to pull the plug. That means that you have either not supported the coach well, not done a great job, or any of those things. And if the whole reason why you haven't done it is to make sure that you lock your players into a lame duck season, it is going to hurt your future recruiting. Because I've talked to people inside the industry, and they believe that Billy Napier, that this thing is gone. And that they were waiting until after this fifth game because they don't want players hopping in the portal and they don't want players to exercise their red shirts because they've played 5 games. And that, to me, is criminal. That is criminal. If you gonna get rid of get rid of them. But don't sit there and do that. But I do believe that Billy Napier, on one hand, I like what he's doing, but on the other hand, it's a little frustrating. Because on one hand, he's like, listen, if I'm going out, I'm going it my way. I'm calling the plays, doing the offense, all of that stuff. But also, you probably should have gave that job up and just focused on the CEO management on it. I'm just saying. Now, let's look at Arch Manning in this game, Texas quarterback, because he might not be under Billy Napier's level of pressure, but his level of pressure is a non-zero number. It is actually way over zero because Texas is entering the heart of their SEC play with a quarterback that they aren't even sure has that extra gear to get them into the conference championship, much less justify the last 3 years of hype. That's just the truth. Now, is he talented? 100%. But talent is a coach killer. Potential is a coach killer. And that moment in the Sam Houston State game where he's standing over the kid flexing, that just showed how much the pressure is on him, and he's trying to find anything to get it back. I want to see him play well. So let's hope that he can get it. But we will say, though, that Miami showed the blueprint to beat Florida. It is to run the ball straight at them. And while they don't have the same level of athlete that Miami does in the trenches, blocking downhill is what offensive linemen, that's what they live for. And all Arch has to do in this game is make the throws that matter and hit a guy like Ryan Wingo down the seam when Florida starts to overload the box. Don't miss the layups and don't throw the ball to the other team. That is going to be the key. Now, on the other end, you got DJ Lagway because he went from throwing 5 picks on 49 passes to throwing the ball only 23 times in the next game against LSU. Now, the ultimate sign that your offense has lost faith in you is cutting your reps in half in terms of being able to throw the ball and then coming up with the same one touchdown result because Napier calls the plays. So you know it didn't come from the offensive coordinator. It came from the top of this list. And Texas, honestly, is not the game. Is not the defense to get right against. Now, the best thing that Steve Sarkisian ever did was steal Pat Kwiatkowski from Washington to run this defense because the Texas secondary is holding opponents to 169 passing yards and half a touchdown per game over their last 20. And last year, Florida was one of the teams that they kept from throwing for a touchdown in their 49-17 win. Now, Lagway did not play in that game, but do we think that he'll solve the Texas defensive puzzle with what we've seen so far in this game? I mean, I don't know. We'll see. Who knows? Maybe Napier goes full YOLO air raid mode and goes down swinging, but he didn't do it last week, so why would he change now? But the X factor in this game is going to be Florida's crowd. Now, will they show up and back the Gators in a contest of two of the top brands in the sport? One of which hasn't visited Gainesville in 85 years? Or will they be there to express their disapproval of the direction of the team? That's a good question. But to go back to this line, though, I am going. Texas is favored by 6.5 points. Florida has been holding opponents down. Texas offense hasn't looked great. I'm still not going to pick this to be a get-right game for them. I believe it is going to be tough on them. And the Florida Gators lose this game, but only by one single touchdown, which is more than the 6.5. So take Texas and lay the 6.5 points. All right, we got Minnesota at Ohio State. Ohio State is 23.5 point favorites in this game. Over under 45.5. Now, the Gophers in this game, they come in at 3-1. Ohio State is 4-0. This game is in Columbus. And historically, Ohio State has dominated this game. And they just ended Washington's second longest home winning streak in the nation. And this defense, they are absolutely for real. They're absolutely for real. And these coaches are for real. Ryan Day is for real. He just won a national championship and figured out how to win big games. He hadn't figured out how to beat Michigan yet, but what does it matter if you can still win a national championship without beating Michigan? I know Michigan fans, it matters to you. Ohio States are pretending it don't matter to them, but, is what it is. Now, PJ Fleck, he is trying to be stolen. Like, teams are trying to steal him right now for these openings in college football. You got UCLA open. You got Virginia Tech open. You got Arkansas open. And PJ Fleck is one of these names that Oklahoma State, that people are continuing just to, hey, are you good? You up, big head? That's what it is. Now, the quarterbacks in this game, you got Julian Sand, 987 yards in this season, 10 touchdowns, 3 picks. It's been efficiency over volume for him. But Minnesota's quarterback, freshman, Drake Lindsey, do not sleep on this kid. He's got almost 1,000 yards passing already this season, 7 touchdowns, 2 picks. And Minnesota needs to play clean in this game and not turn the ball over and figure out how to run the ball. Because if you are dependent on Drake Lindsey to run the football, if DeMond Williams could not have success doing that, Drake Lindsey ain't going to have success doing that. Minnesota has to run the ball, pass the ball efficiently, and that is going to be tough against this defense from Ohio State. It just is, because their front has been absolutely smothering. They've been smothering. And the Gophers, they got to stay ahead of the chains. And, this Ohio State offense on the other end, very balanced attack. Like, we have not seen this from Ohio State in a long time. This feels like those, like 2005 13, 14 Alabama teams where they just lined up and just leaned on you, just leaning on you. Like, they're not trying to do anything special, tricky, none of that stuff. Bo Jackson's doing a good job, but the thing at some point in time, Ohio State has to unleash Jeremiah Smith because there will, I promise you, I was a former pass catcher, been around a lot of wide receivers. There will be some frustration growing with Jeremiah Smith because he had hopes and dreams of this year coming into this year of winning the Biletnikoff Award and all this stuff. And right now he's got 28 catches, 396 yards, and 4 touchdowns. And when you look at where this ranks in the nation, we're talking about, he is number 18 in the nation in terms of yards. Number 18 in the nation. And there are plenty of people who have more touchdowns. And then in catches, he is number 22 in the nation. Those aren't going to get you the postseason accolades that you're wanting. So, of course, there's going to be some hesitation there. But they got to figure out how to get him the ball to keep guys like that happy, especially not just for this year. He got one more year after this, too. Now, the X factor in this game, third down defense. Minnesota has to get off the field on third down. And then on offense, they have to. They absolutely have to make sure that they are converting third downs because 3 and outs, you're going to lose. Losing the field position battle, you are going to lose. And that's what Ohio State is doing. They are taking the field position and they are not letting you have it. And then their athletes are bigger, faster, stronger, and they're winning. I'm just saying. This is what it is. All right, I am going to pick this game. Ohio State wins this game. But 23 and a half, that's a lot of points. However, I am going to lay the points with Ohio State. 23 and a half. This is going to be an easy cover. Hell, they would have covered this versus Washington last week if they were playing in the shoe. All right, next game up. We got Penn State at UCLA. Now, Penn State is favored by 26 and a half points in this game. And you're like, George, why are we even talking about this game? Nothing on the UCLA side because we're going to see what we're going to see out of Nico Maliava and this offense, and it ain't going to be good. It ain't going to be good because it ain't been good all year. And Penn State's defense is really good. They are tough, they are physical, and they are going to be mad after losing to Oregon last week. Then, yes, the 2-time zone travel thing after an emotional loss, it might be a thing, but don't think that UCLA is coming out here scoring 21 points because that ain't happening. It ain't happening, even at home, even if Penn State starts slow, because this UCLA offense has been putrid. And James Franklin and his staff, Andy Kotnicki, they know that the offense that they put out versus Oregon is not going to cut it. I expect them to open things up for Drew Aller, and this is either going to be a feast or famine thing for him. It should feast because UCLA can't stop a nosebleed right now. So this is a get-right game for Drew Aller. You have to give him the confidence to throw the ball. And if he can't, to put it frankly, you up Schitt's Creek. If he cannot have success throwing the ball against them. It's just a reality. I'm sorry to be the bearer of bad news, but those are just the facts. There is no way for you. There is not a circumstance that UCLA can win this game. This is a threat level 0 to Penn State. The only threat to Penn State is not getting Drew Aller going, not getting this running game going, not getting this offense looking competent. Because if not, the fans are going to get more critical. James Franklin's going to get more testy, and it is going to cause problems down the road for this team. All right, next game up, we got Kentucky at Georgia. Kentucky at Georgia. Now, Georgia's favored in this game by 20 and a half points. Not going to spend a lot of time on this game because Kentucky's quarterback situation is not good. Georgia's going to be mad at losing this game. Georgia almost lost this game last year at Kentucky. And Gunnar Stockton, who was nerfed last game, under 150 yards passing. Georgia is going to get right against this Kentucky team. It is going to be it should be ugly. It should be ugly in this game. I'm going to take Georgia at home to start a new win streak, minus 20 and a half in this game. Now the question is, will the over under a 48 hit? Probably not, because but Georgia's defense, Lord have mercy, it just ain't it right now. But I do believe that they bounce back big in this game. Now, this is a game of a top 10 team in my rankings, is and number 14 in the AP poll. You got Iowa State, number 14, at Cincinnati. Cincinnati is favored in this game. Cincinnati is favored in this game, and I'm like, and I know that Iowa, that they have a propensity and a proclivity for being in rock fight type of games. However, it feels highly disrespectful that they are playing against Cincinnati, and Cincinnati is favored in this game. I'm gonna be honest; it feels weird. The line on this game has been falling, but it still feels weird. It does. Because Rocco Beck is playing very well. Iowa State is 5-0. Cincinnati, yes, they are 3-1, and their lone loss was at Nebraska, but still. Actually, it wasn't at Nebraska. It was against Nebraska in Arrowhead Stadium. So I am looking forward to this game. It is one of them early 9 a.m. kickoffs here on the Pacific time, and it'll be what? Cincinnati's Eastern? No, Central time, I believe. So this will be a 11 o'clock kick there. So I'm looking at this game. I'm still rolling with Iowa State. I do believe that they lose at some point in time this season. I just don't know when that's going to be. They have already taken care of Kansas State in Dublin. They took care of Iowa 16-13. They just beat Arizona 39-14. So, yeah, I am in no way, shape, form, or fashion concerned about this team at all in this game. Iowa State, money line in this game, buddy. All right. And here's the thing is, but let's not, I don't want to fully just ignore Cincinnati, because their quarterback, he has an opportunity to play well. And he has played well so far this season in Mr. Brendan Sorsby. He already has 10 touchdowns this year, 1 interception, and that lone interception came against Nebraska when they were trying to come back at the end of the game, and he threw a bad pass toward the end zone. So he is playing very well right now. And I do believe that is why Cincinnati is favored at home, because they know it's probably going to be a low-scoring game. But I just don't see them being able to hold off Iowa State. Matt Campbell feels like he's on a mission for his second straight 10-win season, and the second 10-win season in Iowa State history. Feels good. This is a man who loves being in Ames, turned down multiple jobs. So I love to see it. Next game up, we got Illinois at Purdue. Illinois is a 9.5-point favorite in this game. Purdue has looked significantly better. This is a threat level of like a 5. From a scale from 1 to 5. This is a 3.5 threat level to me. You just came off an emotional win against USC. I picked this team to go to the playoff. I believe that they are going to beat Purdue in this game. Drew Aller in this passing game will continue, like they're building some momentum and all this stuff. Their running game with Fagans and all this. Yes, really good job. Really good job. And Brett Bielema got his team to bounce back, and they should have beat USC by more. They didn't fumble two balls into the end zone, basically, when they fumbled into the end zone once, and then they fumbled on the one. They fumbled on the one, and then they fumbled on like the 3 or the 4 going in. That's tough sledding. And Luke Altmaier's doing a good job. He's got 11 touchdowns already this year. But then Ryan Brown for Purdue, he's doing a good job. I am going to take the Illini to win this game. However, this 9.5 feels a bit much. On the road after the emotional victory, I believe that Purdue is going to be able to keep it inside this number. That this could be a 7 to 9 point win, but that 9.5 feels a bit aggressive. All right. Next game we got. Now, this game is not in no way, shape, form, or fashion is a game that anybody is like, oh my God, I can't wait to see this game, aside from the coaches' names, because you have Clemson at North Carolina. Clemson is favored by 13.5 points. Think about how bad North Carolina is at 2-2, that you have 1-3 Clemson favored over you by 2 touchdowns. Think about how bad North Carolina has been. And honestly, nothing looks good for North Carolina right now at all. They don't look good. They lost. They got beat up by TCU in the beginning of the season. They beat Charlotte and Richmond. They got just drowned by UCF last week. They are going to be playing Clemson at home. This is a 100% get right game for Clemson. They will win this game by more than by the 13.5 points. So lay the points, because Dabo is the kind of guy to get Cade Klubnik, who on the season 6 touchdowns, 4 picks. The energy is going to get to going. The only way that North Carolina stays inside of this number is if they take Gio Lopez out, who has 3 touchdowns, 3 interceptions on this season, and put Max Johnson in. He is the better quarterback. I'm sorry, Bill Belichick. I know you are an expert NFL coach, but college football, come over here and holler at your boy. Holler at your boy. Now, yeah, because UNC looks awful right now. They don't even look like that there's any hope of any putting a good product on the field. But now, here are some teams this week who I believe are on upset alert. Upset alert for me this week, Washington at Maryland. Washington is favored by 5.5 points. Washington is 3-1. They just played tough against Ohio State. So you're probably like, George, it's Maryland, right? It's Maryland. How could you be this high on Maryland? Yeah, yes. Are we talking about 4-0 Maryland? Yes. Yes. That team. Okay, we got Mike Locksley versus Jed Fish. Same kind of guys. We're talking about builders. Maryland is beating FAU, Northern Illinois, Townsend, and then they just beat Wisconsin. Now, Washington should win this game. I believe that this is going to be tough sledding for them, only because this is going to be a 12:30 p.m. Pacific kick, 3:30 Eastern time. It's in Maryland. Big Ten teams have not done well. 2 time zones. Jed Fish's teams have not done well 2 time zones. Now, I have predicted that Washington will finish, I think I picked them 5th in the conference this year. And losing to Maryland will put a bump in that road. But, I think that Washington was phenomenal at home. They didn't lose last year. Only loss since Jed Fish has been the head coach has been to Ohio State, which is understandable. But they have not traveled well and been good on the road. So this is the reason why I'm putting Washington on upset alert. This 5.5 feels, I don't. Washington should win, but I'm going to take Maryland in the upset in this game. That is one of my upsets for this week. All right, next game up. We got Michigan State. 3-1 Michigan State versus Nebraska. Nebraska is favored in this game by 11 points. Both of these teams come in at 3-1. Michigan State's only lost 2 weeks ago at the stroke of midnight versus USC. And then you got Nebraska, whose only loss came in Yeah, Nebraska's only loss came a few weeks ago versus Michigan. So and that's because they got out physicaled. Michigan State's defense has not been able to stop a nosebleed. However, their head coach, Jonathan Smith, when we look at him versus Matt Rule, these are both programs in the building stages. Michigan State just started the build a little bit behind. And I believe that Michigan State will be a little bit healthier this week. They were just off, and now they get an opportunity to play Nebraska. Jonathan Smith is going to scheme some things up. They're going to look at the USC film, see how the stunts from their D line hurt them. I believe Nebraska wins this game, but they do not cover this 11 points. It is going to be too much. Michigan State is going to stay inside this number. And Aiden Childs, who is having a good year this year, is going to continue to play efficient football. And Dylan Raiola, who has 11 touchdowns and 1 pick on the season, he's probably going to be under a little bit more pressure than he's been outside of the Michigan game. But as long as Michigan State doesn't give them a lot of easy access throws, which Dylan Raiola loves, then they'll be able to stay inside of this number. We got a couple more games. We got Mississippi State at Texas A&M. Texas A&M is favored by 14.5 points in this game. And this is a one where I am putting Texas A&M on upset alert. And the only reason why I'm putting Texas A&M on upset alert is because sometimes they have a propensity to turn the ball over too much. And then also, they are penalty ridden. However, Mississippi State, they lost their game last week versus Tennessee because pick six and a fumble six. If that doesn't happen, they upset Tennessee. And Jeff Lebby has this team moving in the right direction. Now, if Mississippi State is able to cover this 14.5 points, it is because of only one reason. Because Mississippi State turned the ball over too much. But they were able to put a stop to Tennessee's explosive offense and pick Joey Aguilar off and all of that. They are going to have similar success against Texas A&M, even though they lose this football game. I am going to pick Texas A&M to win this football game, but probably around 10 to 13 points. 14.5, a little bit too aggressive for my blood. Texas Tech at Houston. Upset alert, only because it's at Houston, even though it's still in the state of Texas. Texas Tech favored by 10.5 points. The reason why I'm putting them on upset alert because who is going to start? Is Baron Moore and their NIL guy? Is he going to start, or the true freshman that came in and won them the game versus Utah? That's going to be the question because Houston's defense has been tough for the last 2 years. This feels like a potential spot here, and we are going to be monitoring this game. Another team, Virginia at Louisville. Louisville, nobody's been talking about Louisville all year. Nobody's been talking about it. And Louisville is a team that can win football games, and their schedule gives them an opportunity. So Louisville is playing they're 4-0 coming into this game, but they just beat Pitt last weekend. They had Bowling Green, James Madison, and East Kentucky or Eastern Kentucky. We don't know. And Louisville is favored in this game at home. I am going to outright pick Virginia to win this game. I don't believe that Tony Elliott, their head coach, is going to allow them to rest on their laurels and winning. And his message is not going to be, don't get fat and happy. This ain't rat poison. You ain't good enough to have rat poison. You are not a good enough team to have rat poison. So he's going to communicate that to his team, and I believe that they win. Now, the next thing that we got. The last game that we got to talk about is we got Cal versus Duke. And people are like, George, why are you talking about them? Because we got some new fans from the Calgorithm. So we got to service them a little bit because they want to talk about it. But the main reason why I want to talk about this game is because I am going to be watching this game for 2 reasons. for two reasons. And this game is a night kick, 7:30 in Cal Berkeley. The reason why I'm watching this game is Darian Mensah, Duke quarterback, who has been absolutely balling this year, and then Cal's quarterback, Jaron Kiwi Sagapuatelli. That is the only reason why I'm watching this game. So Darian Mensah through 5 games, 1,573 yards passing, 13 touchdowns, and 2 picks. He is lighting it the hell up. Now, Duke had 2 losses to Tulane. They lost 34-27, and then they lost to Illinois 45-19, which it was just a turnover festival in that game. So I'm not even going to hold that one against them too much. But on the Cal side, you got Jaron Kiwi Sagapuatelli. He came out hitting like gangbusters this season. And so far, 1,242 yards, 8 touchdowns, and 4 interceptions. Now, the last couple games, the kid has slowed down, and this is some rookie wall activity. So he started out against Oregon State, 3 touchdowns. Then he played well against Texas Southern, even though he did throw a pick, but he was completing 70% of his passes basically through 3 games. Then they played San Diego State. That's where things started to fall apart. 17 for 34, under 50%, no touchdowns, 2 picks. And then last week versus Boston College in a win, that in a dicey game, 22 for 34, 254, 2 picks. 2 touchdowns and a pick. So this kid is clearly playing well, throwing for a lot of yards, but it is going to get much more difficult this week against Duke, and I cannot wait to see it. You guys, though. This is Unafraid Show, George Wrighster's college football podcast. Make sure that you like, subscribe, get notifications, tell a friend about the show, and most importantly, share and get in these comments, man. Peace out.